Good morning. How are you this morning? Um, it's funny. Now, whenever I click the button, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's just going to blow up. I don't know what's going to happen. But today we are free and clear. It is Wednesday, the 27th of April, 2022. I am John Schenk. I am your host. Who am I? Well, my main job is I'm the managing broker of Deerwood Realty in St. Louis, a company that I founded. It's real estate brokerage, just a simple thing. And what we do is we help buyers buy homes, help sellers sell their homes. And I don't know, I kind of got caught by the live stream bug a while back. I have a live stream, Deerwood Realty live streams. I have the podcast channel and the video channel, Deerwood Realty. And then at night I do a live stream, Our Nature of Employment, which deals with employment issues in the United States and around the world. So I'm happy to be with you this morning. I'm going to do a shout out to the chat that doesn't exist. Hi, chat. Anyway, started a little late today. We're 2 minutes late. I got to do some stuff in the back end. So I'm going to try and talk and do that at the same time. It never goes well. It's always a bad idea, but you do what you can do when you can do it. So that's what I'm doing. How are you today? What are you seeing in the marketplace? Are you looking to buy something? I got a call yesterday from someone that's looking to buy something, and they understand the market is terrible. I don't think people really understand on the buyer side how bad it is until you've been rejected for making an offer that's $20,000 over asking. Then it really kind of sinks in. Or one house we were $50,000 over asking, and another person was $75,000 over asking. So then after that, you start to realize, like, hey, this is a bad deal. This is a bad deal. So. Gosh, I'm pretty happy with things here on the back end. I wanted to go over something that I did yesterday. I had I showed a house yesterday afternoon. I wanted to go over kind of how that went. So about 2 months, about a month ago, this house came up in St. Louis, coming soon, and my buyer immediately fell in love with the house. She drove by the house twice before it even went active, and then we sat and watched as it sat in coming soon for day after day after day after day. My buyer was excited about going to see the house, and she would ask me, when can we go see it? When can we go see it? At first, it wasn't allowed to be shown until the 21st. That was the schedule. Then it moved into to yesterday. And so she has her heart set on this house being the one. Now, why does she have her heart set on being the one? Well, she likes the price. Okay. She likes the yard. Okay. But she's never been in the house. And so that's a problem. That's a problem. If you've never been in the house and you say, well, the pictures looked great. And you say, yeah, pictures do look great, but there's something about physically going to a house. And so yesterday was our opportunity. We went to the house. I opened the door, and when there is that moment where the buyer says, I'm going to buy this, it usually happens within the first 30 seconds of when we go in the house, believe it or not. But we walked in, and there was a smell of wet dog, and the carpet was dirty and nasty. The paint, it last been painted probably in 1994. The ceiling had patches where they had fixed some stuff and then didn't even bother to paint the ceiling, just left it. So then we walked into the kitchen had it was a gorgeous kitchen. There's no question about it, but there was no pantry. And so that's kind of not great. And then we went down the hall where there was more carpet. Bedrooms, maybe 6 by 6. I swear they were the smallest things ever. Then you go look at the bathroom, and the bathroom had been remodeled. It looked gorgeous. And so here's where you get fooled when you're looking at real estate pictures. If you see that the kitchen is in good shape, and if you see that the bathroom's in good shape, you automatically assume that the rooms must be in good shape. But they weren't. It wasn't good at all. It was old and dated. You gotta have to pick up the entire floor. So then we went downstairs, and they had made 2 rooms in the basement, but there had also been water in the basement. So then the brand new carpet that they put down, we could already assume that within the first year of ownership, there was going to be water everywhere in that carpet, and it was just going to start getting moldy. So at the end of the day, you had a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home. You could never add another bathroom because of the way the plumbing's set up. And then your basement was just entirely useless. Like, you were never going to be able to fix it up. It was just always going to be that. And this was a small house. And what happened on this listing is what happens all the time is the square footage game gets messed up. When you look at the MLS, we use above ground square footage as the calculation for square feet. So if a house has 1,000 square feet above ground, that's the square footage of the house. What Realtor.com and what Zillow and others do is they take the space in the basement and add it to the above ground square footage, and then you come up with this living area. So all of a sudden, a 900 square foot house can be as much as 1,400 square feet. It could even be 1,800 square feet if someone thinks you can live in the entire space in the basement. And so you make houses look much, much larger than they are. A lot of times in South City, what I see is they'll put a chair in the attic, and they'll say that that's a living space. And so now you've just doubled the living space there. You say, how can you get away with this? Well, people don't check and people don't know. When you're looking at comps and you've never been in the house, how are you going to know that that's what they did? And you're using your comps to measure against a different house. So anyway, I saw it coming. Okay. In this market, you never want to put all of your dreams, hopes, aspirations into one offer on a home, because it's quite possible that it's going to disappoint you. Either you're going to not like the house when you actually go see it in person, or it's going to get bid out from underneath you, and you're not going to be able to get a chance to get it. So it was disappointing, but not surprising for me yesterday when I went to the showing. And so, will my buyer learn anything from that experience? No, because again, when you look at the pictures online, it looked like a great house. The only problem really happened is when we actually saw it in person. So I feel bad. I just know that we're going to have to keep looking as far as, finding that house that makes sense. And this was the same buyer that just last weekend had a house that she was really excited about, and we were at $30,000 over asking, and it wasn't even going to come close. So it's kind of frustrating. But yeah, that was the showing yesterday. Other than that, I think for a minute I want to go over something that I don't know, that I see that I just wanted to try to go through, and that is, I have these buyers that want to buy a house. Okay, different buyers, and that's totally normal, right? That's what they want to do. But they're getting desperate, and so there's a house that came on the market this week that has a basement that is a wreck based on the disclosures, and they're still excited to go see it, and I don't blame them. But they're doing the same thing as my other buyer is. They're looking at the pictures, and then they're saying, okay, well, this is gorgeous. We're going to go see it. Well, but they're not seeing in the pictures like the basement repairs. So we don't know how they fix the basement or if they fix the basement. The real estate agent isn't going to take pictures of those kinds of things. So again, they're getting their hopes up. And I've told them, like, look, this got serious basement issues. Like, they say it in the seller's disclosure. And yet we're all excited about going to see this house. And it's like, my opinion has always been, if you can buy a house that doesn't have basement issues versus one that does, buy the one that doesn't. Because why do you want to be bothered by that kind of stuff? I just don't know. So anyway, those are the things that I have as far as the real estate game that I'm aware of. I don't know what this is Wednesday. I don't know how my weekend's going to shape out. Shake out. I have some showings scheduled, but not too many. Weather here in St. Louis has gotten kind of nice. The light stays around longer so we can show houses at night and be able to actually see the backyards. I'm gonna double back on this first house and go through it from now the agent perspective of what I saw. Okay, here we go. Now, to me, it seems like if you're a listing agent, you want to have the most exposure possible, and in the marketplace, you want to advertise the most you can to get the most people to your listings as possible, and then you want to you kind of want to follow through. You know, like if you say something in the listing, you want it to be true. And the house I saw last night was a fascinating case in just bad listing management from the side of the seller's agent. So, number one, they put it coming soon almost a month ahead of time. Then they changed the expected date, okay, which makes them look like they don't know what they're doing. The expected active date got moved back for a week. Why did you put it in so early? Like, what good did that do? By the time you'd put your listing in, there'd been houses, maybe 100 or more, maybe 1,000 or more that had come to market and sold by the time you got around to listing it. And what you really did is, like, my buyer was really wanting to see the house. But the week before we had put an offer in on a different house. I mean, like, we were still in the real estate game, and we were still like, if there would have been another house, we'd have bought it. So you're just basically just sitting out there kind of, you know, waving around in the wind. And I just don't understand what they were doing. It was not that nice of a house. It was a team that was listing it. It wasn't that great of a house. Didn't really need a team to list that particular home. And you spent all that time in coming soon, and then you come to market with a house that smells like a wet dog. It was gross. I mean, I don't even understand what you were thinking. And then you have it, it's going to be as is, you know, no, we're not going to pay for we're not going to have it at municipal inspection. You'll have to get that. Then we're going to cut the commission. So you're not even going to be that excited about going. They just did a bunch of things that were just like, I hate to say this, but they were just, from my perspective, it wasn't even going to fly because of the way the listing was set up. I'll let that be a lesson for you. If you're going to list a house, you know, at least make it welcoming, at least make it so that people want to come see it. And as an agent, that's kind of your job. You know, that's kind of your job when you're listing a house, to make it so that people want to see it. And it's definitely not your job to hinder people's access to it and make it so that it, you know, it's, instead of being the number one on people's list, it's like the third or fourth. I don't know. That's just me. Yeah, I bet you all would be surprised that just from doing this for so long, that you kind of get hunches, kind of get to the point where you know what's coming before it it gets there. Just in the way that the agent writes the listing, you kind of know. You kind of know how the disclosures are filled out, if you're really going to get a shot at the at the house, if you're going to want to make an offer. There's times where I'll look at a listing and my buyers will say, hey, we really want to see this house. And I'll look at the listing, and then the way it's set up, it's like, this is going to be a disaster. And like, one of the things that I know that's going to be a disaster is right now we're in kind of uncharted territory in the sales space for the seller side. I mean, things just go get sold right away. So when you put something on the market and you list it and it's, and you list it and it's, it sells, that's no problem. But, it's kind of hard to, like, when you're on the buyer side and someone lists something they give you a date that says no occupancy for 4 months out. Like, as a buyer's agent, I'm not interested in that. And like, on the buyer side, I'm not interested in saying, hey, we're going to buy this house and we don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 months, but we're committed to buying this house. I mean, rates can go all over the place in 4 months. You have a tremendous exposure there. The market can change in an instant. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. And now we're waiting 4 months to move into a house. The same reason why I don't really like short sales. If my buyers have to move, it's like, we don't know when the bank's going to agree to the short sale, if they're going to agree. So now we're under contract where we could go look at 50 other houses and maybe get an accepted offer on one of those. But we're sitting around waiting for a short sale that may or may not close. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I was just thinking what actually, like a lightning bolt, hit me while I was talking. And I know I had a listing appointment a couple weeks back, and I haven't gotten a call. I haven't gotten anything afterwards. So I suspect they went with someone else. I was in touch afterwards, but like I said, I don't think I'm going to get the listing. I feel like I got brought in for, like, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like I kind of got used, but that just came through my mind. I got to check that listing this afternoon and see if it actually did go active. And, do I care? What am I going to do? Like, that's the other thing is, I do get upset when I don't get listings. I do get upset when, buyers leave the marketplace and don't buy a house. Like, it makes me sad. But it's kind of part of being in a real estate. I mean, you kind of have to get used to a lot of disappointments, often, all the time. So I don't know. I guess we should get into it. Let's do this. Let's oddly enough, let's go to a different article first. We'll go to the interest rates because I'm curious. I talked to my lender last afternoon and I was curious how things went. And let's see here. It says 30-year fixed was down. So it's 5.32% yesterday. Now it's 5.28%. So we're getting a little bit of a lowering of the rate, which is good. I got to set that up. So, it's not very exciting when it moves, a couple points either way, but you can see from the graph, I mean, that really took off. That's like a hockey stick or 45-degree angle. I mean, that's not a good situation long term. Let me make a note of that for my file. Okay. Well, that's done. Let me go back to here just because I want to kind of have a smooth transition. Scratch my nose, get a drink, narrate it. I did want to check this because I just want to see something here. Wild. So I did want to talk about Twitter a little bit. I'm seeing that people are getting more followers and things look to be changing over there. And I would just say, like, looks like there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that's a bit odd. But if it comes out, like, Twitter could really have some problems if it comes out. And there was, like, I mean, you say it's a private company, but are you allowed to discriminate with a private company? No. And based on what I see, they're discriminating on viewpoints, they're discriminating on race, they're discriminating on a bunch of different things, or they have been. And if this all comes out during the new ownership period, it's going to get really gross. Really gross. So anyway, I'm excited about Elon Musk. My wife even asked, hey, what's happening with Twitter? Everything she had read was that Twitter is falling apart and it's going to be the worst place to go ever. But I think it was going to be fascinating. So let's see what happens there. All right. Let's do our article of the day. Google search trends has us learning about Google stock. There's 100,000 searches on the Google Trends page. Let's get into the article. Let me hit that button there and let me go there. It says, shares of Google parent company Alphabet plunged more than 5%, adding to severe losses so far this month after the company reported lackluster first quarter earnings on Tuesday, which showed a slowdown in revenue growth while also announcing a $70 billion stock buyback. Now, if you have money as an organization and you buy back shares, that should increase the stock price. The argument against stock buybacks is you should be deploying that capital for more growth. If you're literally just buying back your own stock, you really think that that's the best return on your investment. That's the theory. I don't know if it's true. It says, here's the key facts. Alphabet reported first quarter revenue of $68 billion and profits that came in slightly below expectations, causing shares of the company to fall roughly 5% in after-hours trading. While overall revenue was up from roughly $55 billion last year, thank you, it grew at a much slower pace, up 23% from last year, when revenue had grown 34% from 2020. Alphabet saw a boost in its core search advertising business as businesses spent more on marketing coming out of the pandemic, but the company is now contending with slowing revenue growth. While Google Cloud revenue was a bright spot, coming in slightly above expectations at $5.8 billion, advertising revenue from YouTube took a hit during the quarter, well below expectations at roughly $6.9 billion compared to $7.5 billion expected. Let me just talk about that for a second. When I was advertising my YouTube live stream, I had a very good ad guy doing my ads, and we were advertising on YouTube, and every single video that we were advertising would get rejected for advertising. Couldn't figure out why. We just thought it was a mistake, but after a while, it got so bad that we started to ask around, and so we asked Google. We said, "Look, what are we doing wrong here?" Because it would always be we'd get flagged for like bad behavior or something like that, and I don't really think that I don't think I'm that crazy where I have all this bad behavior. And they said that you mentioned the word pandemic, or you mentioned the word corona, and those aren't allowed in advertising. And I said, well, it wasn't in the advertisement, it was in the actual video. And they said, it doesn't matter. Anytime you use those words, we're not going to allow you to advertise. And I was using the pandemic. I was using the coronavirus in the terms of, what's going on in the real estate marketplace. I was not giving medical advice. I had nothing like that, but just the mere mention of it got us booted. I think a lot of these companies, they hurt themselves. I mean, I've told you before, I wanted to advertise on Facebook, and they make me advertise within a 15-mile radius of my office, which is partially in Illinois. And I'm not licensed in Illinois. I have no reason to advertise in Illinois. So it makes no sense. And they shoot themselves in the foot. And I think that's partially what they did here. They won't ever come out and say that that's what they did, but that was what probably happened. Alphabet's board of directors, meanwhile, also authorized a $70 billion in stock buybacks, a major increase from the $50 billion authorized last year. So, how much of Google's growth is them just buying shares? Shares of Alphabet had fallen nearly 4% on Tuesday ahead of its earnings report as big tech stocks led the declines, and yet another bad day for markets with the Dow plunging 800 points. Now, the market going down, okay, to me, the market going down, to me, 800 points anymore, like as a percentage, it's not that big a deal. It's a lot, but it's not like it used to be. So on a percentage basis, 800 points, it's still bad, but not great. So let's look here. It says tangent. According to adding the uncertainty around tech stocks in recent weeks was a big earnings miss by Netflix, with the streaming giant reporting that it lost subscribers for the first time in over a decade, citing increased competition and password sharing. You've always got to find something to blame. The company said that it expects to lose more subscribers in the current quarter. Is that because of password sharing? Or is it because of things that you've already done? Netflix CEO Reed Hastings said in an effort to return to growth, the company would explore offering a lower price subscription tier with ads, though it will take several years to implement. That's a terrible earnings call then. The critical quote, it says the quarter's being presented in a negative light because Apple missed expectations, but the actual numbers aren't awful, with some modest upside in the core search business, says Vital Knowledge founder Adam Christofali. YouTube is going to be a source of legitimate anxiety, but on the bright side, this isn't another Netflix yet. It's calling the $70 billion buyback authorization an added positive. I mean, that's his thought. I mean, the company's not losing money. That's one thing. Alphabet is one of the first big tech companies to report first quarter earnings at a time when the sector has been hit by big losses this year, as investors worry about the Federal Reserve's aggressive interest rate hikes to combat inflation. Alphabet's stock had fallen roughly 17% so far in 2022, while the NASDAQ Composite Index was down 19% this year. So, what are we to make of this? I don't know. Everyone's allowed to have a bad quarter. You're not going to grow all the time. Wall Street likes growth. That's it. That's the bottom line. They're not getting it here. So they're a little bit upset. I'm very bad at stocks. I used to play in the stock market, and I learned my lesson. We don't play in the stock market anymore. So that's that. Let's look at this. Oh gosh, I haven't set up my filters for today. So let's get that in order. Here we go. We'll look at these top three. These are the luxury homes in Nashville, Tennessee. I was kind of interested. In this. Where are we at? Okay. Sorry. I was clicking around in the background. Nashville, Tennessee. I think people are moving to Tennessee. I think people are moving to a lot of different states. Those with less of a tax burden, for example, Florida, Texas. Tennessee has a lower tax burden, I believe, than other states. So let's just take a look. I haven't been to Nashville in a while, so I don't know if I've seen all these houses or not. We'll just if it looks like I have, if I get to it, we'll get rid of it. But this is beautiful. I mean, this is the first picture that you want on a house, and it's a $15 million home, 5 bedrooms, 5.5 baths, 8,938 square feet on a 22-acre lot. And let's just get this out there. This is the smallest house, okay, but you've got 22 acres. The second house we'll look at has 22,000 square feet, but it's only on 5 acres. And the third house is 11,000 square feet. So anything over 10,000 square feet to me is pretty good size. And then that's on an 8-acre lot. So let's get to it. So here we go. It's got a 12-car garage, which I think is great. Let's look at the property details. If they're not too long, great. They're not too long. Premier Chickering Road Estate, 22 level acres, gated and fenced. Direct Warner Park access, classic Southern traditional brick home in the style of A. Hayes Town. Main residence, main level primary suite with new marble bath, guest suite plus 3 additional bedrooms, all ensuite upstairs. Outbuildings include a 3-car garage, a 6-stall barn, 2 run-in sheds, storage building, and a 2-bed, 2-bath guest house with a 2022 renovation. This in-town farm offers both privacy and convenience. Enjoy sunsets from the front porch, the enormous screen porch, and the paneled library. Well, how is it doing on the market? Well, it was just listed in March 16th, 2022. So, on a high dollar listing, we don't expect it to sell in a week. But this is beautiful. This is the first picture, real estate dreams are made of. There's the home. I mean, it was only built in 2001. It's not like ancient by any stretch of the imagination. There you go. You've walked in the house. So far, Rick French of French King Fine Properties has done exactly what I would do if I were listing the home. And between you and me, we look at luxury homes every day on Realtor.com. Okay, every day, and it's amazing to me how many listings over $1 million have terrible photos. They're hard to see. They're all pixelated. I mean, and then they're pictures and they go everywhere. Like, what is this about? Like, look at that kitchen. It is beautiful. And this is one of those listings where the pictures aren't terrible. They're doing it in a way I would now. There's one thing that I'm wondering if they'll do, and it's 58 pictures, so it's quite a few. But I'm very interested. Now, this is an outdoor space, like a 3 Seasons room, I believe, with a fireplace. Really cool. It's got a theater room, of course. We love that. The big issue here is you've got this 22 acres and a beautiful home. But it's, on square footage, it's not going to compete with some of the others that are over 10,000 square feet. I mean, it's got little roads and just that looked like, I hope those are fake. That's all I'm saying. Those are fake. They'll make a mess. Oh, there's a little table outside. Horses. This is going to be the horse barn. And then there's the little guest house, which is cute. I mean, excuse me. You can see it's just a little cute space that they remodel and it looks really, really nice. I would live in that. So what they didn't show, which is what, we've talked about. Now, I do like this. Of all the listings I've looked at online, this one is top 90% easily. Why? The pictures are all clear. The pictures show a walk through the house. There's no doubles of the pictures, which is always strange. The description of the home matches up with the pictures in the listing, so you kind of have an idea of what to look for in the pictures, once you read the listing. The only thing that I would say that knocks this one down a little bit is that there's no floor plan. That's it. This listing was very well done. I think more agents should spend more time. Like, how do you do a good listing? Because even in the very luxury world, you know, you need to present that property in a way that best helps your seller. So that was a great listing. Good for them. That was French King Fine Properties. Now, I don't know them. I don't know anything about them. I just know that the listing was done perfectly. Now, this house been on the market for 459 days. So we've looked at this house before, asking $12.9 million, 22,000 square feet, 4-car garage built in 1998. Property details, again, not a huge, Nashville's not big apparently on their property details. It says a fully realized dream estate in the heart of Belmead. This extraordinary 5-acre gated property features 22,000 square feet, Greek antebellum revival home of old Carolina brick and adorned with a 2-story colonnade, custom ironwork and limestone balustrades, the breathtaking grand foyer with 3-story elliptical staircase flanked by embassy-sized rooms will surely impress. Pool, tennis court, wine cellar, in-law quarters, and so much more. See attached pertinent facts for extensive details. A proof of funds is required. Most of the time on a multi-million-dollar home, you're going to need proof of funds before you even get to see the property. This house has been listed off and on since 2016. 2016. It's been a long time. Let's take a look and see if, now this is a different agent. Let's see if the pictures, line up, if they're as good as the first one. So now we automatically went up here. I hate that picture because I see it all the time now and it's like cliche. Okay, we're not getting inside. Now there we go. Now that is a beautiful entrance. I do love like woodwork, like custom, I guess they call it custom millwork, but I mean, I am a sucker for that. Like, look at all the woodwork in there. There's no drywall. It's beautiful. I'm not a big, I don't hunt, but I'm also not, I don't get nervous about, other people's animals. I read that one time in an article that you're not supposed to have your dead animals out, for the people, but I think it looks fine. I mean, this is a nice home. Is it a $12 million home, $13 million home? I don't know. But it's pretty. Not that many, not too many pictures. I think the listing's fine. To me, I think you should always have a floor plan at this point. I mean, you can see that's a really interesting photo of a place where you're going to live. So that's cool. Oh, there's a very interesting pool. All right. That was that one. Now let's go over to another house. 12 million. It's got a koi pond, 5 bedrooms, 5.5 baths, 11,000 square feet on 8 acres. Asking 11.9 million. 42 pictures, built in 2001. Yellowstone comes to Nashville. Casual Elegance describes this estate perfectly. The gorgeous custom home is open and airy and making it an entertainer's dream. Built like a fortress, this estate sits on 8.3 completely fenced, pristine acres right in the heart of Forest Hills. Minutes from Green Hills, the interstate, hospitals, and the airport, its location is hard to beat. This home is loaded with custom finishes. Outside pool spa area is to die for. 2-bedroom, 2 guest house. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, I'm guessing. Guest house with putting green is perfect for all those Nashville visitors. Here's the history. It's just been listed in June of 2021. Been on the market for a while. 42 pictures, 312 days. Take a look. I remember this house because of this unique water feature in the front. These photos to me now, this is Karen Russell's with Partners Real Estate LLC. These pictures are nothing close to the ones we just saw for the other two properties. I don't know why, but like things are cut off. Things aren't in frame. And I'm sure she had a professional do these pictures. I mean, I have no doubt. But this is not the way the other house was done. It just looks cut off. Now, you may say, I just wanted to go over this. You may say, John, why are there pictures of the house in the dark? I mean, what is that about? Well, the sellers probably said, hey, will you list our house for us? And the agent said, yes. Yes. And they said, hey, we think our house looks beautiful at night. Will you come and take pictures at night? And look, it's an $11 million listing. Yes. I'll have a photographer. I'll have a photographer sit out there all day if I have to. But then she probably, I'm guessing it's a she had the listing all put together, the photos. And then the seller said, hey, there's no pictures of the house at night like you promised. And then she had to go back and they aren't in there because they're horrible. And this picture doesn't help us at all with this doesn't make me want to buy a house. It's just like, it's like, why are we taking a picture of the house in the middle of the night? And then we have this one. It's like, oh, look, you can have a fire and you can have, yeah, but I don't need this to go buy the house in any way. So these are put in there probably because the seller requested it, not because see how it's kind of cloudy. So those are hydrangeas and they're blue. And if you know anything about that, you have to have the proper soil, and I don't have the soil. So mine are white when they should be, or they're pink. So anyway, I'm not very good at that. Now look at that. And there's a big old horse. I do remember parts of this house since the last time I looked at it. I thought, and I can remember thinking it back then, the kitchen's not that big. And it's open. It's like, we don't care. It's basically saying we don't care about the kitchen. Like that's not a space that we are interested in. So. Great. Okay. Well, that was Nashville. Just got to check the chat. Oh, there's no one in chat. Okay. I was worried. Let's continue down the road. We've got an article here. It says, signs you're overpaying for a house. Now, I've always been kind of, it feels like I overpay for a house every time we put in an offer, but we're always over asking in this market. And I always think it's tricky because if I go back to the beginning of my career 14 years ago, and we bought a house, back then we would still negotiate normally on the sale price. Sometimes we would be at asking, which we always thought that was really expensive at asking. And those houses now would be worth fortunes, and like, even if we would have paid $5,000 more for the house, it would have been fine. 10,000 more, it would have been fine. It's crazy to think about how the prices have changed so much in so many years. So here we go. Unfortunately, overpaying for a house is a common issue among buyers right now. The market is incredibly hot across the country. The demand for homes is high and the supply is low. People are trying to buy houses only to find themselves in bidding wars. Bidding wars can make it more likely that you overpay for a house. When you overpay for a house, you're going to spend more on everything, including the down payment, the closing costs, and the thousands more you pay in interest over the years. So how do you know you could potentially be overpaying? No matter what your emotions are telling you, the following signs and the following are signs and red flags to watch out for during the process. So let's get going here. This is interesting. The listing price is different from the comps in the area. If you find a home that you feel is what you're dreaming of, but the listing price seems out of line with sales of comparable properties in the area is potentially a red flag. It could be that the seller priced their home based on the values of neighboring homes instead of what they're selling for. Working with an experienced real estate agent who understands the current market can help you a lot here. You have to look beyond the value of a home. You have to consider the community, the local school district, and many other factors. Again, your realtor should already understand these factors and be able to negotiate on your behalf with these in mind. Homes in the same neighborhood should be a similar price. There will be a variance based on things like size, but generally the features will be similar enough that you can use comparables as a good guide. So let's talk about that for a minute. There was a house a couple weeks back that my buyers wanted to put an offer in on. And I can talk about it now because no one's going to remember the house. They were asking $269,000 for this house. There had been 8 houses that sold within the space of $220,000 to $230,000. And one other house, an additional house, had been in a bidding war, and it started at $230,000 and ended up selling for $260,000. This agent put the house on the market for $269,000. And it was not in as good a shape as the house that sold for $260,000, nor was it in as good a shape as the houses that sold for $230,000. That house still sold. I mean, it still went under contract the first weekend. I suspect we were above asking. We were above asking on our purchase price. So can you imagine what someone actually purchased that house for? It's ridiculous. It's going to cause issues down the road for everyone. But in that house, is the listing price different than the other homes? No, it's $9,000 more than any other house. But that's the market that we're in. Another home that my buyers were interested in this past weekend, the comps indicated that it was a $230,000 house. The listing agent put the home on the market for $230,000. We know that $255,000 wasn't going to seal the deal. So in that case, the listing price isn't different from the comps in the area, but the sale price will be dramatically different. It says the online estimates are lower. Online valuation tools have their flaws, but they've gotten significantly more accurate over the past few years. If you go online and valuation tools value a home lower, then I have to do something. Wow, I just stopped the live stream to text. Shouldn't have done that. Anyway, let's see. Online estimates are lower. I don't trust the online estimates ever. I've just been in the business too long. I don't trust the online estimates. So I would say I don't really care about that. And then the next one is it's the listing price is similar to homes no longer on the market. So this red flag can take a little more research to figure out. But if you're looking at a home with comps similar to sellers who have taken theirs off the market, keep this in mind. An agent will have access to homes that were taken off the market. If the asking price on these unsold homes is similar to what you're looking at, it could be overpriced. The listing price is similar to homes no longer on the market. An agent will have access to homes that were taken off the market. If the asking price on these unsold homes, yeah, that's going to be dicey. I don't know about that one. And then it's been on the market for a long time. If a home has been on the market for a long time, you could be at risk of overpaying. A home that's priced too high doesn't get showings or interest and then doesn't get offers. You need to think carefully about why other people might be passing on the home. Of course, if you're in the situation where your bidding war it can be different, you might be at risk of overpaying simply because you're caught up in the emotion and competitive element. If you're going well beyond your budget simply because you end up in a bidding war, it's probably time to take a step back and reassess. No matter what the value of a home, if you pay more than what you can comfortably afford, you've ultimately overpaid. Now, do you see how in this article they've moved the definition of overpaying to a home in the last basically 3 sentences, last 3 to 5 sentences? So you can be overpaying relative to the market. You can also be overpaying relative to your own savings, your own comfort level, which is a different definition. I agree with this article 100%. I say 100%, maybe not 100%, but I do agree with the article. Let's just put it that way. Let's move on to our final article for the day. This was written on April 11th, and I just wanted to put it out there because I think it shows, kind of the increase. It says 30-year mortgage rates jumped to 5.25%, highest since 2009. The last few days of March offered some hope that 2022's massive rate spike might be slowing down. The first few days of April crushed those hopes, and the things have only gotten worse as the new week begins. After breaking above 5% by the end of last week, Monday morning brought the average 30-year fixed rate up to 5.25%, a level not seen since 2009. To understand why, we have to revisit the general motivation for the rate spike. Before we do, let's put massive in context. It's not an overstatement considering this is the biggest, fastest jump in mortgage rates since at least 1994. I mean, it was massive. Look at it. Bam. As for the why, it's actually fairly straightforward. The Federal Reserve is best known for setting the Fed funds rates, which dictates the cost of the shortest term financing. It raises and lowers that rate to try to persuade inflation and employment to remain in certain ranges. In cases where the rate is cut to zero and the Fed thinks more needs to be done, they buy bonds, U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities specifically. Okay. Like let's go over that because it's tricky, and even I have difficult time with it. Okay, so as for the why, it's actually fairly straightforward. The Federal Reserve is best known for setting the Fed funds rate, which dictates the cost of the shortest term financing. It raises and lowers that rate to try to persuade inflation and employment to remain in certain ranges. In cases where the rate is cut to zero and the Fed thinks more needs to be done, they buy bonds. Buying bonds creates excess demand in the bond market, which in turn pushes longer-term rates lower. It's basically a way for the Fed to influence both short and long-term rates. At the start of the pandemic, financial markets were in chaos, and the Fed stepped in to cut rates to 0% and buy bonds at a faster pace than ever before. Rather than dial back those bond purchases when markets began to settle, the Fed concluded that it should continue providing as much monetary stimulus as possible in light of COVID's impact on the labor market. They justified this with the assumption that COVID-driven inflation would subside as the pandemic subsided. Now, I just want to go back to our discussion on YouTube's advertising, or Google's advertising. Me talking about this particular line as it relates to inflation is not acceptable for Google advertising. I'm not allowed to even read this. It's got nothing to do with anything else other than that. It's absolutely crazy. As we now know, COVID-related inflation didn't subside. By the Fed's own admission, it drastically miscalculated the persistence of inflation and even the health of the labor market. And no one will be fired. There will be no consequences to the people that are hired to make these decisions. They'll just be business as usual. Meanwhile, if you failed at your job miserably, it created a financial market meltdown, you would be fired immediately. That's what I have a problem with. As 2022 approached, we suddenly found ourselves staring down the barrel of the biggest inflation numbers and the tightest labor market in decades. Meanwhile, the Fed still had its Fed funds rate at zero and was buying more than $100 billion in bonds each month. The Fed is causing the inflation. Don't kid yourself. They are the problem. Change was slow to come at first. In September 2021, the Fed began winding down new bond purchases, a process it needed to complete before hiking rates. A few months later, as inflation continued to surge and the labor market grew tighter, the Fed began accelerating its exit from easy money policies, but much like a battleship in a river. That's exactly right. They're given like a fire hose of water to douse everything, to douse a fire. They're not given like a garden hose. I mean, when they do stuff, it is overdone almost all the time. By early 2022, the Fed's communications spoke to a certain level of panic not seen since the 80s. The Fed does not like to make big course corrections once it starts to turn the proverbial battleship, but in 2022 has seen all sorts of unexpected accelerations one after another. This rapid rethink and rapid removal of bond buying demand on the part of the Fed is the key ingredient in the rate spike seen so far in 2022. Last week merely brought the latest iteration. I think I said that right. Specifically, in a prepared speech on Tuesday morning, Fed Chair Lael Brainerd, normally one of the most rate-friendly Fed speakers, joined a chorus of more hawkish Fed members who've been talking up the possibility of extremely large reductions in Fed bond buying, which is referred to as normalization. This wasn't an entirely new concept, as the Fed is already on record saying 2022's normalization will definitely be bigger and faster than 2017, the only relevant precedent. That said, the market was surprised to hear it from Brainerd, or at least in such emphatic terms. A lot of hard words in this. Emphatic. Emphatic. Whew. One of the reasons for the surprise was the fact that the following day would see the release of the minutes from the most recent Fed meeting. Fed minutes often contain additional clues about impending policy changes. Traders correctly assume that there will be a bombshell in the current version. That went a long way towards softening the blow when the minutes actually came out. So what's all the Fed fuss about? In a nutshell, the minutes laid out an explicit roadmap for normalization, whereas the Fed rolled out 2017's normalization process with $4 billion per month hit to the MBS, mortgage-backed security purchases. 2022's plan calls for phase one to start at a staggering $35 billion per month. The discrepancy is similar when it comes to the Fed's treasury purchases. Again, we knew it would be bigger and faster, but not quite this big and fast. Because the Fed bond buying targets longer-term rates, that's where we saw the pain after the minutes release. In other words, things like the 10-year treasury yields continued moving higher, while 2-year treasury yields managed to recover. Mortgage rates care about 10-year yields because the 10-year yield speaks to trends in longer-term rates in general. Alternatively, forget all that and just observe the correlation in the following chart. Okay. While longer-term rates also correlate with some shorter-term rates, as you can see in the following charts, it's not quite the same. Short-term rates rise and fall faster and less often. Interestingly, though, when short-term rates peak, relief typically isn't far behind for longer-term rates. Unfortunately, we have yet to confirm that peak. So many things are so different about this economy and monetary cycle than the past precedent may not be as useful as normal. All we really know at the moment is that we're waiting for several key developments. The most important among those would be inflation data to show signs of shifting. This could take months, though, and the bond market may have priced in an overabundance of caution by then. Before that, we're waiting to see what triggers the Fed actually pulls at the upcoming meeting in May. So we're in April 27th right now. Certainly they'll be hiking probably by a point, 50 basis points, 0.5%. They're also likely to enact the normalization plan laid out in last week's minutes. If that's the extent of the damage, then the market will finally be on the same page with the Fed, barring any additional accelerations in the coming weeks. Paradoxically, that means the rate hike and big reduction in bond buying could actually be a good thing for longer-term rates. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen such a paradox. Longer-term rates always do their best to account for future possibilities. If they know the Fed is likely to hike short-term rates or to normalize bond purchases at a certain pace, they're free to move on to their next trend. In several past occasions, we've actually seen mortgage rates move lower while the Fed policy was tight or tightening. So again, the question is, how well have long-term rates priced in the future this time? It's only been the unexpected changes in the outlooks that have caused so much extra upward momentum in rates. Once that outlook stabilizes, rate will probably already be coming back down. Unfortunately, there's no telling if that's the sort of thing that will happen in a few weeks, a few months, or in fits and starts throughout the year. That's a pretty heavy article this morning. I think what I would like to do is apologize. I'm sorry. It was a little too heavy for a morning live stream. But that's what's going on with the Fed. Let's transition out. Here we go. Bam. So what did we learn today? Well, we learned that Google's advertising wasn't so great last quarter. We learned that earnings weren't so great, but they're still doing a $70 billion buyback, and they still made enough money. They're still okay. They're going to survive. They'll be around tomorrow. We learned that the homes in Nashville are gorgeous. Luxury homes in Nashville are gorgeous. We learned that there are signs you could be overpaying, depending on your definition of overpaying. There were two different ones presented in the article. And then finally, we learned that mortgage rates are correlated to the Fed's moves, and the Fed's moves are, at this point in time, dicey. Dicey, I would say that. With that, I'm going to head out. I was going to do something today, and then it didn't work out. So now I'm a little sad. But that's where we're at. Thank you for watching. Thank you for, the future. If you get a chance, would you please subscribe? It helps me. I'm a boomer, and I feel bad that I only have, I think, 8 subscribers. It makes me sad. So if you could get around to just pressing that button, I'd appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to head out.